We all know that there is so much talent out there, and sometimes it's just intimidating and overwhelming. Personally, I think the best thing to do is to look up to these talented people and use them as inspiration for your own music. And then obviously you have to have the will and commitment to want to improve as well. But sometimes it's kind of tough to know where to start. As I mentioned in previous videos, I've been a drummer for pretty much all of my life, and I've got to say that playing in the pocket with samples and finger drumming is a lot different than with acoustic drums. It's just a different thing overall, and there's no hiding because like you're the band. The general concept of the pocket is a little bit abstract as well. Like, how do you practice something like that? One of the first and most important things is to just listen and have some sort of aim as to what sound you're going for. And then the second step comes over time with experience, is being able to translate that sound into a feeling when you're actually performing. Those two things go hand in hand. In this video, I'll be demonstrating some pre-performance tricks for pocket playing, as well as some technical exercises and concepts that will help get you there. Okay, finger drumming. Let's get into this. Let's talk about sounds and balance. Drum sounds are one of the most important things in general, especially when it comes to having a pocket. Yeah, you've got to have the right kit. And it doesn't end with just having the right kit, it's having the right kit for the style of music that you're playing. If there's one big takeaway from this video, it's that your drum sounds depend on your music, not the other way around. We're focusing on like a down-tempo lo-fi sort of thing here, and here's the kit that I'm using.
That's all, folks.
The drum one-shots are a mix from some of my favorite sound designers, and the snare is mine. If you're interested, my sample packs are linked in the description. Generally, for pocket playing, you want your low and mid frequencies to be upfront and balanced. That might not necessarily mean that you want to pump the volume of kick and snare. You might just want to lower the volume of your hi-hats, let's say. This kit is a little bit unbalanced now. I find that the hi-hats are too loud in comparison to kick and snare. As a general rule of thumb, you never want your hi-hats to be overpowering your kick and your snare. It'll most likely just make your drum sound a little bit thin. I mean, I'm sure Kanye could pull it off somehow. If you're using an MPC, go to Warp Samples, Master, Volume, Hi-hats. I'm gonna bring them way down. Something like that. The second pre-performance trick is sidechain compression. Sidechain compression can be a little bit tricky, so if you don't understand it from a technical standpoint, there's a video on that, explaining it in my DAW Logic Pro 10. Once again, relating this back to being an acoustic drummer, you just have more control over velocity and your tones. And to a certain extent, you could sort of create that sidechain effect acoustically, live. With finger drumming, you've also got velocity, but it's not quite the same thing when you're playing with set samples. Sidechain compression will help forgive your timing. It actually makes other instruments duck out when you hit your drums, which gives this sort of like pumping, forward moving motion. With the MPC one, there's a sidechain effect called Mother Ducker. I know that there's other MPC models that use the same interface, like the MPC Live. I'm not sure if there's other ones as well as that one. In any case, I'm not really gonna focus on this specifically for those of you who are using different machines. Yeah, that'll be for another video. Damn. Just like with sounds and balance, sidechain compression is a similar type of game. You want a good balance of all your parameters for it to pump well with your sample. I think the most important ones are attack, release, and threshold. I like to leave these two parameters pretty short, and for those of you who don't really understand, I have a full video that's dedicated to this, linked in the description. So we've got our pre-performance pocket tricks out of the way, so now we're gonna look into how to improve pocket as an actual performer. Just like playing any other instrument, this sort of thing takes time, experience, and practice. If at any point I'm explaining things and you don't really understand, I have a simpler MPC video on finger drumming. Check it out. Steadiness is key. You want to keep your subdivisions as steady as possible to start with. If you're playing to something that's sampled, chances are that you're playing to the click, so if your timing's off, it really sticks out. Like I said, there's not really much to hide behind here, so it's kind of all out in the open. So I'm going to turn on the click, and I'll be playing a 16th note hi-hat pattern with the click, really just trying to lock in with it as much as possible. Here we go. 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Even if it sounds a little bit robotic at this point, just keep with it. I'm gonna add kick. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Sidechain. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Snare. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, So some of you might just be like, wow, Liam, what are we doing here? I could already do this. Okay, well, let me ask you, are you focusing on getting your hands to line up perfectly? This is another thing that creates what's called the pocket. When your limbs, or in this case, your fingers, are lining up at the exact millisecond, at the exact same time. The goal here is to lose the click. So like, if you're not hearing the click, it means that you're on time. See, I'm off there. 3, 4, 1, 2, kick is gone. 1, 2. This exercise here was sort of like a eureka moment for me back when I was playing drums in university. And I hope that this exercise sticks with you as well and is another takeaway from this video. In terms of performance, this is the most important concept for improving your pocket playing. So how do we get better at this? The key is to start with very simple patterns and turn down the speed of your metronome. Start with a very slow tempo, maybe something like 60 BPM. In fact, we'll do that right now. Click on, 2, 3, 4, same thing. Just get a feel for that tempo and really lock in. See, I'm a bit off. And once you're comfortable with that, you can start adding notes. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Once your fingers are lining up at those slower tempos, then you can start speeding it up. This is a very simple concept. It requires you to like go inwards and focus on very minute details, and that's what's going to improve your playing. It just requires that extra time and focus. With acoustic drums, you have so much control over the intonation of your hi-hats, which gives like a cool human vintagey sort of flavor. So how do we imitate that using samples and finger drumming? So right next to this hi-hat pad, I have the exact same hi-hat. With the MPC 1, you're able to warp your sounds, which is exactly what I'm going to do here. I'm going to turn the volume down a little bit. I'm also going to head to filter envelope, cut some of those high frequencies, and I'm going to change the decay on this amp envelope, see what that does. There we go, make it a bit more flabby. And so now we have 2 intonations or variations on the same hi-hat. If you're not able to warp samples on your machine, you could always just bring it to another DAW, do it there, and then re-upload it onto this pad. Playing a groove with just one hi-hat sample obviously sounds fine and has its place, but if you want to add that extra flair and human feel to it, I would say definitely go with a second hi-hat sample. And I'm fully aware that this might be a point where a lot of you are kind of hitting a wall. The best advice I could give you is the same as before, just really slow things down, maybe start at 60 BPM and practice this going back and forth between the hi-hats. Once again, focusing on your subdivisions being consistent and lining up with the metronome. Let's touch on ghost notes, which I admit are not super responsive on the MPC 1. I'm not sure if other MPCs are more responsive with this sort of thing. So what is a ghost note? Essentially, it's a note that's quieter than the notes that are being accented. If you are going to use ghost notes, generally you want them to be happening on the off beats and the accents to be happening on the downbeats. So I'm going to count out loud and attempt to play some ghost notes on the MPC 1. Here we go. 2. So there you have it. I'm fully aware that I've sort of thrown all this at you at once, so hopefully you're taking notes. I think we need a recap. Your sounds. Experiment with them. Super important. Remember that your sounds depend on the music and not the other way around. Sidechain compression is your friend. If you've got a machine that offers it, I highly suggest that you use it within your beats. It could sort of help soften the blow if your timing's a little bit off. Moving on to performance tips. Always aim for consistent and smooth subdivisions. You want your fingers to be hitting at the exact same time, so the closer they are together, the better. And then there's velocity and variation, so warping a sound and adding that onto a second pad, or being velocity sensitive and playing ghost notes on the same pad. That about sums it up. Smash that subscribe button. button. I'm really enjoying the MPC, so you guys could expect some more content coming soon. As always, huge thank you to you guys. Any sort of engagement with this video or any of my other content is a huge help to this channel, and it really just allows me to keep doing what I'm doing. So if you feel like you've gotten your time's worth out of this video, give me some engagement. Throw me a bone here. You guys are amazing and talented human beings, and I will see you very, 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 very soon. Ciao.